Hey Facebook friends, happy Friday. Hope that you're having a great day so far. It is only 8:42 Eastern Standard Time. But just wanted to come on. A lot of you have seen some of my posts. A lot of you probably saw my post from this morning talking about some of the anxiety that I have been feeling. This subject is so near and dear to my heart for two reasons. So as most of you know, I am a former social worker. I am so incredibly blessed to stay home with my kids now, which really, though I am trying to find balance, and I'm quite positive, I'm quite certain that's probably where some of the trigger comes from with my current struggles with anxiety, is the change, the huge change. I still can't say enough how incredibly blessed I feel, have zero regrets. And so anyway, I am a former social worker. Mental health is near and dear to my heart. This is not, what I'm going to talk about has nothing to do with my previous professional life. I'm not forming any professional opinions. What I'm going to talk about is about personal experience, like what I've gone through, what works, and with close friends and family. So I just want to put that out there because this just, I'm not throwing out. There's a lot of tools that I have in my toolbox that I learned from 8 years of being a social worker, and I do still hold my license, but again, this is just based on personal experience and not professional opinion. So, first thing I want to say is that when people think about mental health, mental illness, the first few things that pops in their head is schizophrenia, bipolar, suicide, hospitalizations. Like, that is the first things that people usually think about. I honestly can say that is something that I probably thought about before I went into the field of social work, because as I do believe things are getting better, I don't think that we are a society of, taking preventative measures. Like, it's not something you really learned about when you're younger. It's not really talked about. You don't really learn about it at school. I do think that there are changes being made. I know that is a conversation that I have with at least my oldest daughter at this point. We talk a little bit about feelings, how is school not just about the schoolwork, and just, the pressure, everything that's going on, as well as, outside of school and friends and different things. And, I try to talk a lot about that. I am very cautious about how I share the way I'm feeling with my kids, but I am pretty open about some of it, so that if they feel that way, they will talk to me as well. So I just want to say that no, it is not, like, I actually feel like, and I am going to bring in some of the work I've done, that from the population of what people think mental health is actually like this much of what it really is. Because if you've ever struggled with feeling anxious, overwhelmed, down in the dumps, a lot of new moms struggle with postpartum. I mean, I did, and I did with both children. The first child was like at the beginning, and I didn't even know I had it until later, when I looked back and was like, wow, that was really rough. The second child, I took precautions. I actually was diagnosed with PMDD and really, really struggled throughout my pregnancy. So I was medicated. I needed to be medicated. There's no shame in medications. I am still on medications. For me, I have to take a very low dose of medications just because of the way that my body responds which is why I have to do a lot of other things. Well, I shouldn't say why I have to. You should always do a lot of other things to work on your own mental health. You should never rely on medications. I mean, any doctor will tell you that it's not a cure. So when I was pregnant with my second child, it was really, really tough for all of us. And so I was put on medication. So my postpartum with my second child didn't come till like, probably almost a year later. When it was like, things finally kind of caught up with me. I was able to manage a lot of my mood because I was on the medication that we found out really didn't work for me. It worked very well while I was pregnant and after I had her because it really helped with my mood and postpartum. But it didn't, there were side effects that didn't go well for me. So when we had to start looking at other options, that's when the postpartum set in, because I was like a year postpartum and was the heaviest I had ever been, was not taking care of myself. I've shared before, I'm not going to get too much into details, but about a year and a half after I had my second child, I was in one of the worst places I've ever been, wondering why God chose me to be a mom of two people, two little ones, when I clearly couldn't handle it. Thinking back, that hurts to say that, but that was how I felt. I'm very transparent with my following. I'm very transparent with you guys. And when I made a decision to stay home with my girls, which really was a dream I had for such a long time and didn't even know it, I was a good social worker. I enjoyed the job, but came to a place in my life where I needed to really choose where my focus needed to be, because I give 150% to what I do. So this is the path that I decided to go in. And so I made a commitment to myself and to all of you who follow me that I would continue to have this conversation though, and I would continue to share the way that I have been affected, because even when you work in the mental health field, you have to be incredibly cautious about what you share. There's a lot of ethical boundaries around that. And so sometimes that makes you feel a little bit like it's wrong that you're doing this and you struggle, right? Because you can't share that information, which I totally understand all of it, but it's still hard. Like, you know what certain people feel like, but you have to be cautious about the way that you go about that. So anyway, my platform left my office, or I used to work in a lot of people's homes. My platform is no longer that, but it is now, to all of you, to my followers, to my keto community, to other moms, my mom community, all of those things. I said I was not going to digress, and I did. I always do. So anyway, that's what most people think it is. It is so not that. It is so much more than just, those really chronic mental health issues. So my second thing I want to talk about is triggers. Like, it's really important to know what the trigger could, well, I say it's really important. It's not always super important to know what the trigger can be. But at the same time, you can kind of work through that, process that if you do know. So for me, I'm not going to get into all that, but for me, I'm pretty certain that the trigger really is the change. Like, it's a good change, but as we know, good stress can also trigger anxiety, depression, whatever. So I think it's the change. I spent the first month being home. It was summer. It was awesome. Doing all kinds of stuff with my kids. Every day we were busy. I love that. I live for that. And then all of a sudden, rec ended, and we were doing gymnastics. We were doing all this stuff, and it all ended. So we had a lull, and that is when things started up for me. because we weren't as busy. My routine was kind of going down the drain a little bit. And that's where things started to kind of go downhill. And then I had to try to find a way to manage what I was doing, the change, in a different capacity. So, then school started and it seemed like things were getting a little bit better, but then there's some other things that kind of came up and threw us off routine. And anyway, so though the last couple days, I would say 2-3 days, I've been feeling better because of some of the things I'm doing. The sun has been out, which is huge for me. I don't know about any of you. Sometimes I wonder why I live in a place where we don't get a whole lot of sun, because it negatively impacts me when there's no sun. And I know there's things like light boxes and whatnot, and yeah, I do. I am a person that needs to look into that kind of stuff. So it's just about finding balance. That's kind of where I'm at. And when I say balance, you're not really going to find balance. I don't necessarily agree that you're going to find a balance, but you need to find a rhythm. So that's kind of where I'm at, and it seems like I'm starting to do that again. The next thing is, how are you taking care of yourself? So like I said, I am on medications, but my doctor and I have realized that, first of all, there's a certain category of medications my body does not respond to, because I become incredibly careless. I become, I shouldn't say that, that's not a good word, but just kind of I feel pretty good, but I don't really have the motivation and desire to do certain things. So we, after several trial and error, that was like a year of my life, we found something that seems to work better. But when I was really struggling with anxiety and we tried to increase that medication, we quickly realized that it's not something I can do for a lot of different reasons. I just was super tired even after waiting. And so anyway, so what does that mean? I can't depend on that, nor should I depend on that. I know that. I know professionally that, that is one of the first things they teach you. Medication should always be done incongruent with other things that you're working on. So, for example, I'm very blessed that I am home, but do take mental health days, because that's huge. They're not really encouraged very much, but I don't see what's different from that than, being home and having a fever. Sometimes you just need to recharge your batteries and kind of get back on track. And even though I'm home, I still do take mental health days. My mentor, and I have been talking a lot lately, and, she really was like, what is overwhelming you right now? What do you want to do with your work at home business? What do you not want to do? Maybe spend a couple days doing nothing because you just need that. So sometimes we just have to convince ourselves that it's okay to do nothing. Another thing that I find is helpful for me, especially now that I am home too, and I do have a big social media outlet, is joining different groups on Facebook or following hashtags about people you can connect to. So whether it's stay-at-home moms, for me, it could be working moms. I think there's there's more pressure, honestly, on working moms. That was something that caused me a great deal of anxiety when I was working. So there's a lot of forums you can join, and you're gonna see really negative people in there, but you just have to scroll past it and engage with the people who you can relate to, who are trying to get better. Another thing that I hadn't really done in a while, but is really, really good for me, is affirmations. So I have a journal that I will sit down in the morning and basically write what I envision my life to look like who I am, what I'm doing, different things like that. And so I don't ever put in there, I do talk a lot about anxiety, but I don't ever put in there that, I'm free of anxiety, because I don't think that's realistic. But almost every day I will write, I'm able to manage my mental health effectively, because I think that's most important amongst a lot of other things that I write that I see myself wanting to be. So affirmations. I've never really been a huge spiritual person, but I think I am becoming it, and I think whatever that means to you is what it means to you. It doesn't mean you need to sit in a pew every Sunday. If you can, great. But for me, I have a couple different devotions. So like this one's the Better Mom, and I literally just read it's like one page a day. Just kind of talking about this one I love, because it just really talks about things that you can connect to, things that moms experience, but how you can add your spiritual leader kind of into your life to support that. So that's another big thing. Journaling is good, and currently the journal that I'm using is the Unlimited. I shouldn't say just currently. Every time I finish this, I usually start it again. Talks a lot about this. So this would be combined with gratitude. I think it's important to practice gratitude. But this in here, you practice gratitude as well as, manifest what you want your life to look like, the things that you need to do. Just kind of, this is really good at with changing thoughts, really changing the thoughts that you might have about certain things. So that's another thing. I love to listen to podcasts, and that was a huge thing that changed when I started staying home. I used to listen to podcasts every day in my car on my way to work, and since I worked in the field, anywhere I was going, I'd press play. Sometimes even while I was doing notes in my office. But being home, that changed. So when we go for walks, I'd listen to podcasts, but then, we live in northern Maine, and some days are really cold, and just it hasn't been realistic to go for a walk all the time. And, when I have some time to myself, I will, or do the dishes. But it seemed like the times I was listening to my podcast were few and far between, and I noticed that was playing a huge impact, because just listening to, so my number one podcast is Ed Milet. I love Ed Milet. He's just so inspirational and real. I like to listen to Tony Robbins when he has different podcasts or is interviewed, because he is also pretty real. There's a documentary on Netflix about him that we recently watched that's great. I like to listen to Rachel and Dave Hollis. It's funny because they are super real, and when I'm looking at what they experience, I'm actually the Dave and Jan is actually the Rachel, and so it really helps to listen. She has her own podcast, they have one together. Of course, my podcast is on my phone, so I'm not going to remember everything else, but so I really like to listen to those. Impact Theory. I like to listen to Impact Theory. So there's just some podcasts that I love to listen to and will for sure, change my thinking in the moment. Obviously, if you're following me, you know that I am a ketones lover. Call it. And so it definitely helps with my mood. I have noticed that out of everything I've done over the past several years, that when sugar is eliminated, it's really about sugar. And you can do this with any lifestyle. You can take ketones with any lifestyle. This is not a sales thing. I'm telling you what works for me. But you can take ketones with any lifestyle. But the thing is, when you are eliminating sugar and your body is in ketosis, it's in its natural state, you feel amazing. So that helps me significantly. And when I'm following strict keto, which I haven't been in the last couple of months, so I know that's part of it as well. And so that means, I don't have any simple sugars in my diet. any sugar, I should say, sugar or simple carbs, then, I mean, I feel the best. Like my mind is clear because it's not cluttered with junk. So that's another thing I do. Getting out of the house, I've noticed, is super important for me. So whether that is bringing my kids to school, even though they, you know, my oldest can take the bus, whether that's going to the library, whether that's just going for a ride to do errands, whatever it is. And so scheduling the things I like to do when I have spurts of energy is super helpful. And then exercise. I wish I could say like I am fantastic at this, but I'm not. Like I'll go through months where it's like I'm killing it and then I fall flat on my face and then I pick it back up. And so right now I'm exercising in here, there, wherever. Getting it done though, you know, it really helps. So the last thing I want to talk about, I've definitely gone longer than I wanted to, is how do you support somebody who's struggling? So first of all, if you don't or have not experienced something that's significant, consider yourself very lucky. It's not to I'm not saying that in any mean way. Actually really consider yourself very lucky. Because it is really challenging, and oftentimes when I'm in that state and like the mental health is talking, I'll say like, why me? When am I going to feel better? Like, why do I have to go through this? Why did God choose me? And none of those things are helpful. So when someone's struggling, I don't think it's up to them to reach out, although that's all we ever say to people. And I was very guilty of that when I did the work. Like, you reach out to me. But when you're in that spot, you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't have the energy, the motivation, desire. So reach out to your friends and family. Maybe you don't know if they're struggling. Maybe it's just, hey, you want to have dinner? Do you want to have coffee? And that will make a huge difference for them, and maybe they'll open up, maybe they won't, but the fact that you invited them will help. I know for me, isolating myself is something that I have been doing lately, and I know it's not good for me. And with the way I was feeling the last few months, I did not reach out to people. My friends reached out to me, and I have, several friends that are part of my company who have reached out to me saying what's going on. And then that's when I was able to talk it through, come up with a plan, and now I'm starting to feel better. But I would not have reached out to anybody about that. That's, it's hard. My husband is great. So he's like my number one support, my number one fan, and he will ask me all the time. So I'm very fortunate. So fortunate about that. So the last thing I want to say, I actually heard this from somebody that I follow. It comes from a book that Scott Miller wrote. And the challenge is to think to yourself, when is the last time that you listened to somebody to understand instead of forming a response to it, which to me means trying to fix it. And I am so guilty of doing that so many times when I was working with people and just with my friends and family. Like, just listen. Like, you don't have to fix it. I do have that conversation with my husband sometimes when I say, just listen to me. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm not asking you to coach me. I just need you to listen to me. So that is important. When someone's struggling, they don't want you to tell them, like, you need to do this and you need to do that. Like, just listen to them and then see what kind of support you can give. So there is, that's what I have to say. That's been on my heart, clearly, because I've really been struggling and been wanting to talk about it, but have been having a hard time. So today I got up, I'm feeling better. And so I really wanted to share this with all of you, because if it could just help one person, that would be great. And clearly I am not an expert. I still struggle. There are lots of things I don't know. So I'm always looking for whatever advice anybody has, and whatever it is to try to kind of get through this and nip it in the bud next time it happens. So I hope you have a great weekend. If this kind of spoke to your heart and you want to chat more about it, then feel free to send me a message. Have a great day.